Welcome everyone to probably the weirdest video I will ever make. This is kind of strange, but I'm in the worst shape I've ever been in my life. If you're new to the channel, some backstory. If you're not, I'll put a chapter marker in the bottom and you can skip to the next one. But I used to be a professional MMA fighter. I started fighting MMA after starting jiu-jitsu just because I wanted to try it and see if I liked it, and I did, and then ended up being a pro MMA fighter and a pro jiu-jitsu competitor, and it's 10 years later and I love jiu-jitsu so much I made a show about it, so here we are. When I was fighting professionally, it was the best job I've ever had because my job was to train twice a day, 6 days a week, on top of doing jiu-jitsu and MMA and Muay Thai and all the things you do when you're an MMA fighter. I did strength and conditioning, I was running, I was all about my diet, and my life was fighting. And I was in the best shape of my life, and I enjoyed that very much. I enjoyed that identity of being someone who is in the best shape of their life pretty much at all times. Now, my life is very different now. Again, more backstory, and I won't get into the whole story again, but I broke my arm in a fight. That was the end of my career, and I was lucky just to be able to train jiu-jitsu because after like a year and a half and 4 surgeries and bone infections, might not have been able to continue training, but here I am, arm's okay. After I was done fighting and I was back to training after my arm issues, I was still training fairly consistent. I had just gotten married, and I was probably training 4 times a week, maybe 5. I was teaching a class on top of training, and I was still in very good shape. But then some things changed. I moved from about an hour away from where I was training for my entire career, my entire jiu-jitsu career, my entire MMA career. We moved about an hour away. So that's not ideal. It's 2 hours round trip in the car every time I want to go train, which kind of sucks. And when you add it up, it's like 8 hours in the car every week just for jiu-jitsu, and it was doable. And then we had our daughter, and it became less doable to drive that far, and training ticked down a little bit, and I would train maybe 3 times a week and teach my class, and I was still in good shape. I was in shape that was much better than the average person, much lower than my peak, much higher than what it is right now, so it was above average for me, well above average for the average person. And this video will involve a lot of me referencing myself compared to others, and I will try not to do that arrogantly as possibly as I can, but I'm comparing myself as being better than other stuff to other people, so a certain level of arrogance will be implied. I am sorry. I understand how it sounds. And if you find that annoying, you should just know you as the viewer are probably in better shape than I am right now, so you can draw that comparison and feel better about yourself. So let's move on. So that's where I was. And then there was a pandemic, which obviously closed our school for a long time, as it did for other schools. And I wasn't training at all. 0 training, 0 roles. And then towards the coming out of the pandemic, as schools were opening back up, my daughter was still very young. My wife works in healthcare in an elderly population, so I still held off training even though schools were opening and things were getting back to normal, because with things being, unknown as they were, we didn't want to risk going into my wife's work. If I was to get sick, then that meant she got it, and then that meant people she worked with were going to get it. So we held off. And then as things got better and vaccines happened, if you follow this channel, you follow me on Instagram, you know that I would train occasionally with our group of people that we would train with, but it wasn't anything super serious. And, my fitness was coming down. And then my son was born in June 2021. And my training went from occasionally rolling with our group of people to seldomly rolling with our group of people. So my jiu-jitsu fitness is at the basement right now. My jiu-jitsu fitness is not to be found. My overall fitness is okay. Also, if you follow this channel and you know me, I love to cycle. I think cycling is a lot of fun. I'm sorry. And I love to run. I enjoy running. It comes from years and years of training to be a fighter. You just run a lot, and I found a love for it. And I will talk about it more than I should on a program about not running. So my aerobic fitness is okay compared to what I would say is like the average person. I would say I'm slightly above average, but even if I'm slightly above average compared to a regular person, from where I was down to average town, it's hard to swallow. So fitness is relative. Like I said, I'm aware that my aerobic capacity is still higher than the average guy in his 30s, and people look at me and hear me say I'm in the worst shape of my life and they roll their eyes because I'm not super obese, but that's a different kind of bad shape. Comparison is the thief of joy, but especially when you're comparing yourself to yourself and what you used to be able to do. So here I am, worst shape of my life. My former self was a pro MMA fighter who trained 2 times a day, 6 days a week, and I know that's not feasible now, but I am happy to say that it's back to work tomorrow. Not only am I trying to build myself back to the fitness I once possessed, but I am also starting to train at a new school tomorrow because we have also moved again. So now if I wanted to train at my old school, that would be 3 hours in the car if there's no traffic just to get some rolls in. And that's not at all feasible with a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. But I think that it will be good. New, fresh start, fresh on the mats, fresh place. It's bad because it's a new place for me to train after 9 or 10 years at one home, one training location. But sometimes that's just what you need and all that you can do. I actually feel really excited about this new school. You will see content from me training at this new school because I've already talked to them about that, because if you follow me on Instagram, you know that I post a lot. I post a lot of training footage. But no matter where it is, I am glad to be back on a regular training schedule, on a regular routine, ready to get back at it. And you can consider this video an introduction of sorts, because I hope you're ready to follow along on the path back to somewhere above average competitor, maybe somewhere slightly below elite, if I'm being very generous to myself. I'll keep this series going, the Rebuild series. It's going to be sort of a training blog style series. It'll be the worst shape of my life series. I'm hoping that I have to change the name of the series for season 2 in a few months when I'm back to... I'll never be in the best shape of my life because I'm just not going to be 25 years old and training as a full-time MMA fighter anymore, but I still want to be in the best shape humanly possible. I'll be the best, most in-shaped dad possible who can also beat up all of the other dads. So thank you for coming along on the trip down memory lane so I could catch you up to where we are right now. Subscribe to the channel and follow along, and I hope to see you in the next episode. All right, let's check the weight.